Welcome everybody, this is TAM Lab 071, prepping for live demo and presentations. Roundtable. Roundtable rules, we've got a smaller panel than we did last time, and the intention there is to give everybody a chance to participate and speak. We'll go over panel introductions and then we'll start the discussions. And then at the end, we have some time for some Q&A. So without further ado, my name is Jody Tyrus. I am a TAM out in Sled West with VMware. I've done presentations in live events for most of my professional life, anything from big McAfee events back when I was in the security world. I participated in moderating some vUnderground panels, pre-VMworld events that happened, the day before. And it's become a passion to just really be involved and to, help people kind of get out of that shell and speak. Matt, go ahead.
Well, thanks for having me. Absolutely. Hey, folks, Matt Mancini here. Appreciate the panel invite. I really started out quite a while ago doing presentations, and not technical necessarily, but whether it was, being the kid that always got up at the Christmas party singing, or the kid through high school that was on the debate team and doing the presentations there in a different style that nobody really appreciated back then, or moving into my DJ company, as you can see there, I've had a wide variety of experiences, and I hope to share those with you today.
Evie?
So I've done a lot of technical presentations internally for VMware back when I was in the GSS realm. I've been with VMware for roughly 5 years. I'm a TAM now for the globals. So I've got 4 different customers I work with, and they're all really, really technically oriented. So doing a lot of this demo work has been like part and parcel for any of our new products we roll out. And I think figuring out that time and scheduling is one of those newer challenges I've had to deal with. But like public speaking, I've been doing this since high school, also on the debate team. Then I also perform as a musician, where I play like trombone, bass clarinet. So I'm used to that interaction with crowds and getting that sort of mindset set up, because it's sort of a slightly different reality that you kind of like working within, because it's sort of heightened. So that's kind of a bit of the background that I've got in that area.
And Joey.
All right, yeah, I'm Joey Ware. I'm based out of Moore, Oklahoma. I've been a TAM for 5 years now. Before that, I was actually the VMUG leader for the Oklahoma City chapter for almost 3 years. As a customer, that I really enjoyed doing that, getting everyone together, as we'll talk later on. But in that picture right there, that is where I'm standing at today. It's still that messy, but that has been our life. I mean, at least that has been my life for the last 6 months, is at that horrible desk right there. But as you'll see, I'm not a great speaker. I wish I did do like debate team or something like Evie. Maybe that would have been a little better, but there's things that we have internally that I think helped, and we can, as we'll get on, maybe we can bring that up, but that's me, nutshell.
Okay. So to kick it off, I mean, I think this is, kind of 101 stuff, but we're going to kind of start back in the pre-COVID world. One of the things I wanted to do is, what are some of the basic must-have setups for in-person event demos and presentations, and things that you've learned the hard way along the way? I don't know who wants to kick it off. Matt, Joey, Evie?
Sure. Why don't you just call out who you want to go first, and then we'll call
Matt,
out the next person. How about that?
Okay, there
we
go.
You bet. So, so a lot of things. So physical things are always important, right? So like adapters like this guy right here that has like every single port imaginable to man should probably be standard in your kit, right? And the warm-up session is always important. So don't be afraid to show your style, right? This is the back of my laptop, right? And that warms up the group even before you started talking. And if they're not warmed up and ready to go, and you haven't done that, you're going to lose them in the presentation right out of the gate. So don't be afraid to warm them up. Be prepared. Think about everything from VGA to HDMI, whatever you need to do it. Have a backup plan for your recording system, right? Think about a product called OBS. It's out there. It's free software, Open Broadcaster Studio. If your cloud thing fails, if you can't record it, you have a backup plan. Be ready. I mean, I learned that in my DJ business. I had backup speakers, backup amps, backup microphones, everything, because the show has to go on. You're doing a show here, a presentation. It's important. Warm them up, get them ready to go. You know, don't bring pizza. Right? Don't bring pizza. If you're bringing food to a presentation, do not bring pizza, right? Do not bring Subway sandwiches. Go to Pier 1 and get all those custom sodas that they sell. How many people bring that? They don't. Bring them in already cold, ready to go. And before they're even started the presentation, they're going to be talking about that soda. Oh, I got Grape Crush and this and you know, Sioux City Sarsaparilla or whatever it is. But they're already warmed up. You set the stage by bringing in something different. You differentiated yourself. You got them warmed up. And we haven't even started the presentation yet. So those are a lot of experiences I had. And I've got a lot of great reactions from folks doing that. And then when I get into the presentation, it's so much different than just walking in cold with a pizza from Domino's, you know. Everyone's kind of blah, you know.
That's funny that I was gonna say,
yeah.
That's funny that you say that, especially about the food, is that prior to joining VMware, I worked for a massive adult beverage company. And I used to joke that if you come see my presentation, I bring samples for anyone that was legal drinking age. And hey, I had like no shame in my game. It's like, I wanted people to come, I wanted people to participate. And then last year when I did a couple of VMUGs in Vancouver and in Phoenix, and I had this little kind of chocolate company on the side, and for the Phoenix one, it was the day before Halloween, and I did zombie fingers. And I'm like, hey, you know, I got stuff, I got treats, you know, come get this stuff. And it's like, whatever I had to do to reel people in and get that hook in the mouth, I said, no shame doing that.
That's cool.
Evie, how about you?
Joey? Oh, sorry, or Evie, you. Sorry.
So, some of the main things like Matt covered, like the core things that I don't get necessarily all fancy stuff, like being the Detroit Windsor area and here in the Midwest. So I don't necessarily get all the pizza or that. So it's like I stick to a lot of the essentials. But out of my whole preparation side, usually I've got my like presentation, like laser pointer, with the batteries and such like that. And got my VGA adapters, backup battery, and networking, like dongles and that, just in case like Wi-Fi goes down. Usually that's something I validate, like and walk through beforehand, is making sure I've got the internet I need. If it's all going to be offline, that usually means I've got to do everything pre-prepped beforehand, and that goes into like pre-prep stuff later. But I definitely second the whole entire use of OBS, the Open Broadcasters software, because you can go through part of the prep stages, like recording everything that you go through, just in case something does go wrong, because it usually invariably does, and you want to have a backup plan, from like knowing where you are with your deck, where you need to splice in, going to like OBS for keep it seamless, to a lot of that Q&A time. Sometimes it's just a matter of making sure you've got enough lead time to be able to do a presentation prepared, and being realistic about what you'll be able to deliver versus what they've asked. If it comes down to like, hey, you're going to do a full demo walkthrough and there's not enough time to like prepare, record it, and you're hoping to wing it, that'd be definitely something you'd want to be upfront of, like, look, this is going to be maybe rough around the edges, expect here that this is going to be changed. Make sure that they're not disappointed, they know what they're in for. So
kind of set the expectations going in.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
And then sometimes software-wise, I've got like Mobile Xterm on hand for like doing shell work. A lot of the times I'll have make sure I've got a connection back to my home lab. Having the internet is really handy, but the other half is like having all the timeouts turned out to maximum, so you don't get logged out of everything while you're mid-presentation, stuff like that. It's never fun watching someone log in to their environment while you're trying to do a demo and have everything log out while you talk, come back to it, and then you're spending another 30 seconds signing right back in. Those human things.
Joey.
And I back up all that. I will say though, if you are going to do pizza, get pizza from a place that is not like readily available for everyone, like Little Caesars or anything. Don't do that. We have a place here that is local, and everyone knows when I was the VMUG leader, they enjoyed it. It's like, oh, hey, we're going to get Hideaway pizza. Yes, we love Hideaway pizza, and just get different flavors. Make sure you get veggies because you always got to have somebody that wants a vegetarian or whatever. So I always try to get more of whatever. I agree. Cold drinks, you don't want to have hot. We had a couple times when I was the VMUG leader. I usually let the partner or sponsor kind of handle that. And I'd give recommendations. Well, they didn't do that to the morning of, and then we ended up getting some pizza from somewhere, and everyone talked about that, and they remember that. They don't remember the presentation, but they remember, oh yeah, they had the worst pizza ever, or the drinks were hot. So you just always got to pre-plan. We've done presentations with a company that was doing a WebEx that morning, like, hey, we're doing this worldwide WebEx. We'd like to get your VMUG involved. I'm like, that looks great, but we were at a place that had dial-up. It's like, this isn't going to work for us. So you kind of work with the presenter. If you're the presenter or whatever, just have a backup plan in case something fails. I carry multiple dongles now, but just because I always have a dongle that goes bad. You got to have something, so I totally agree with all of this. And
to follow up on that, Joey, what does your preparation look like? Practice runs, a room walkthrough, like the day before, the day of, morning of.
So one of the things I always try to do is recommend the same place because you know it. Once you get to a comfortable, everyone knows how to do parking more than if you go to a place more than once, they know how to park. They know how to get to the rooms. That's what I try to do. Now, if we do change it up, I try to maybe the day before get an idea and send all that information out to the guests, the attendees. It's like, hey, this is where you're going to go. This is what you need to do. And then I'm usually at the door also helping direct traffic. I don't mind being a janitor. I don't mind doing that. I will do dry runs on my presentations, as you're seeing now. I don't do a whole lot of it though. I don't mind being unprepared and look goofy because that's just me. That's my character. But if you're going to present a slide deck that has been pre-made, definitely look it over because a lot of times there's duplicates of these slides and you don't want to present the same thing over and over and over. Like, oh, hey, I hit this multiple times. You get boring. So I always try to clean it up and just know your time. Don't go over. Try to save yourself, like we talked earlier, Q&A at the end. You just don't want to bore them to death.
Matt, how about you? What's your walkthrough and your prep look like?
Yeah, I think, Joey brought up a lot of great points. I prepare a lot. I make sure I know my slides. I make sure I know that the day before. I review it. I talk to myself a lot. I do. I mean, even before this session, I wrote down all my notes, so I had them ready so I could check them off. But I probably talked to myself for the past 2 days about this presentation, this thing or that thing. And I kind of worked it out in my head a little bit and really, practice those things. And sometimes you're actually talking out loud when no one's around and just trying to get ready, recording myself. How do I sound? The more you practice this, the better you're going to get at it. Okay. If you don't use these skills, you're not going to get good. And one of the challenges you might have today is that, hey, I'm not getting a lot of presentations. I'm stuck at my desk and I'm not getting in front of people. So I'm not really practicing. What do I do? Right now for me, I'm using my YouTube page and I record a daily tip. And I just take a minute or two to record something, right? Get used to editing it and you keep on using those skills to be prepared. So it's a lot of it is not only being prepared to present with all these things, but having those skills practiced enough so that you're ready to present. Now, like Joey mentioned, going back to the VMUG days, when I ran that, post-presentation preparation is important too. What I used to do is stand in the lunch line, and as hundreds of users would come through for lunch, I would either shake all their hands or talk to them about the day, how things were going, gathering feedback on how we can improve. And then we take that feedback, put it into our cycle, and improve the process. So that's a really big example of a lot of people. A lot of us present to maybe 5 people or 2 or 1, right? So don't be afraid to gather that feedback, constantly improve your processes, practice. Don't be afraid to talk to yourself. I do, and I'll admit it. So I hope that helps.
You're not crazy.
I'm not crazy.
How about you? Do you do a lot of dry runs? Do you write out a script, or is it just kind of, how comfortable are you with your process?
It depends on what I'm trying to deliver, is what I think about it. Oh, sorry, were you still going, Matt? Or is that for me? But no, a lot of the process for me, usually if it's a bigger presentation and I need to definitely keep track of time, I will put through an outline of what I've got to do in my talk track. Like, what are the main things I want to find? What are the slide numbers that are attached to? And if I'm doing product demo stuff where it's getting away from the slide deck, keeping track of where I'm hopping from, where I'm hopping to, and roughly keep an idea of like a budget on time to get XYZ done. Because an overrun for like a demo, or if you're doing multiple product demonstrations and you time it and you get your min maxes, and you might have to start cutting things. And so you want to know what you have to do, what are the main things you want to hit up in your presentation that you want to stick to, essentially. And that's outside of the whole entire getting to the event space, making sure you've got the resources like internet, Wi-Fi, also getting to know a bit of the background of who you're working with. I've modified talk tracks just based on what type of audience I'm working with. Maybe some have a bit of deep knowledge for it, so I'm going to lean into some newer topics of, hey, it's new features. And other ones, it's like they've not seen the previous version or even previous 2 or 3. So I'm actually adding in older content in some of my preparation to help make sense of our newest product items. And that's sometimes customization work that just takes time to find the fit and finish, so they'll come out of this knowing the journey of how we got to where we are today. Because that happens in a lot of our product development, where it's just like we're adding in layers, and getting that base foundational knowledge is sometimes necessary to build it up. And I've been asked too about like, hey, we should probably break these sessions up into a multiple session thing, or being clear like, hey, this is going to be an overview, and then these will be deep dives into these topics. Because having like a whole entire thing where it's like you go through so many topics and basically everyone's blown away at Q&A and they don't know what to do next is not where you want to end up in some cases, when you want to inform and it's a smaller audience, and let's say you're working on an ongoing basis. But to a larger group, you get to work for planning for like from the long and short, where you want to be able to hit like broad knowledge for people who may be versed with it, to the introductory. And that's just a lot of, sometimes I've rehearsed it with people who don't know the topic to people who are experts. Like I'll just drop in with like a team member and see, hey, what do you think about this? And then I get my tips and tricks or notes about that I take back and trim it up accordingly.
Yeah, one of the things that I've done and I thought was really valuable, one is I took a course a long time ago on, Dale Carnegie, people roll their eyes, but it was really valuable for me to see how I looked and how I presented in action. Because in your head, you sound a certain way. And right now, if you look at me, you see that my hands are moving. I talk a lot with my hands. I think that somewhere in my genes, I must have been Italian or something. But it's distracting.
Hey.
It's distracting. I found that it was distracting in person. Once I saw it like filmed back, I was like, man, I do that a lot. And so one of the tips that the instructor was telling me is like, pretend as if at least one of your hands is glued to your side. He says it may feel weird at first, but then you'll relax. You kind of get used to it. You'll get relaxed, and then later on, I saw myself filmed using that technique. I'm like, okay, that looks much better. So just kind of being able to, like, if you have an opportunity to film yourself and just kind of like do that view. I realized back then I never wore any jewelry. And I realized that I looked like I was like not quite finished with dressing. So I was like, okay, I'll wear a necklace. At least then it looks like my outfit is complete. So there's just like these little nitpick things that you don't think about, but how you look on film a lot of time is representative of how people are going to see you in the audience, especially if they don't know you. Another thing that I do is my first run through when I build my slide deck, a lot of times I write out verbatim exactly what I'm going to speak. And then I'll go back through and I'll actually talk in, kind of either the tone or the pace that I think I'm going to be giving. And I realized I talk too fast a lot of times. So I slow myself down, I remove words, kind of try to trim it up a little bit. And then I had some feedback from people in, either peers or people that weren't even, with VMware, with the company I was working for. And one of the things they told me is like, okay, you come from a security background, your talk is really good, but you're dropping a lot of acronyms that we don't know what they mean. Like we have no clue. And it probably just hit my head. And I just thought, hey, everybody knows this. So knowing your audience is important, and knowing that sometimes, dropping an acronym, people may not know what it is. And so go through your presentation with kind of a keen eye for spotting those things where you're assuming the knowledge might exist, but that might not be, your audience where they are in that knowledge level.
Jody, to add to that real quick, think about this in your presentation. Are you trying to get them to think or learn? Think means you ask questions, open-ended questions. It makes them think about what you're talking about. Learn means you just go down the slides and roll through the content and never really engage with anybody. They're learning something from whatever you're showing. But those two techniques help. And that's what you're kind of describing there, those acronyms, is you realize I need to help them to think a little bit too. Think about this acronym, or think about a concept. What do you think about this? Those types of things. And making folks think about your presentation and the topic versus learn about it. That skill and honing that in can really make a difference.
And one of the funniest feedbacks I did get, and which is why I do like to get through a walkthrough, is that people couldn't see me very much over the podium because I'm so darn short, is that I look like this. And so I realized earlier on is that I get out from beyond the podium all the time. It's just something that I've done. I like to walk the aisle. I like to go up to the first row. When I used to do new hire orientation at my previous job, I would walk to the back because those are the people that are kind of just like sloughing off and not paying attention. I'd go back, and when I was talking to my topic, I'd ask them, well, what do you think about that? And so everybody knew, it was like, oh, I better pay attention because she might just like pop up on the side of me like boom, So that was one of those things that I think it's a little bit of my trademark, is like, and it's only driven by the fact that you can't see me behind a podium usually, unless they come up with a box for me to stand on.
And I was never diagnosed with ADD, but if you stay in one spot, I will zoom. I'll look around everywhere. I will not pay attention. So doing that is great, because you are keeping that person like, okay, well, whoa, they're going over here. So I think that's a great idea. Not just because you're short. Yep.
No, it's vital part of presentations and public speaking is owning the space. And like when you confine yourself to like being around the podium or on the laptop and not having that flexibility, can be limiting for a presenter. It's part of
you wake up the whole audience by doing that, by walking down in between the audience or around in the audience, just even a little bit. Everyone just sat up a little bit more in their chair and got out of that comfortable position, that sleepy position they were in, and now they started listening differently. So yeah, very good.
Especially if you got the late afternoon talk, the last one before whatever, the happy hour, you really got to keep people on their toes.
After pizza.
Yeah. Evie, next question. Have you ever crashed and burned? And how bad? And how do you recover from those things?
Well, I've had to push presentations due to like my lab environment falling apart. It has happened recently. I was going to be doing a presentation for an energy vertical, and my whole VROps environment ran out of space over the weekend, and everything was all set and ready for it. I couldn't even revert back to previous backup. It would just all take too long. So I just came down to, we're going to scrap it and push it and be realistic about it, because I didn't have any recordings to fall back onto. And I didn't want to just present pretty much the deck that I had presented around it, just because like this was really vital to have the demo there, and the content didn't make a lot of sense without it. And that's tough in that scenario, because it was like, if it were a live performance in that regard, it wasn't like one of those more impromptu things, I would have most likely had like those sort of things there on hand to be a fallback. But like this was like a smaller thing, and then just had to get bumped. But in other scenarios, it's like I've had reproductions that didn't quite go necessarily where I wanted with it, where it's like you break a lab in a certain sort of way, and then you expect it to like fix in that way, and then it just started cascading into other things being broken, and it just turned into Like, okay, I'm starting to cut certain parts of the demo I'm going to be doing because this whole functionality is broken now. And there's no exactly recovering around it, but in my head, I'm basically slashing parts of content so that no one else knows exactly what's going on beyond it, beyond like the knowledge, like, hey, yeah, this is what's going on here. This has gone slightly off, but they don't know like the bigger impact to it. Because then I see out being a presenter is that unless you tell them something, they don't necessarily know something is going wrong unless they can read your body language about it. And so managing that part of it and being that part of a presenter helps cover that in some scenarios. It's part of the thinking on your feet and responding as a skill, essentially.
Joey, how about you? What's your biggest crash and burn?
Oh, it's the same thing. Like everything worked the day before, and then that morning nothing worked. You know, that I've had that at least once or twice now. I always fall back with the hands-on labs. If my home lab is dead, which I prefer to use my home lab, and then try to be prepared to maybe have a hands-on lab that's already spun up, so when you log in, it's ready to go. So kind of go back to that, preparation kind of deal. But don't freak out. That's my thing. Just like if something happens, move on. I mean, don't hang up on it for 10, 15 minutes because then you start losing the crowd.
Matt, have the demo gods been kind to you, or have you had to go to battle?
Nope, never have gone to battle. I have a perfect record. I think like Joey said, you got to roll with it. Here's what I'd recommend is looking at how others have crashed and burned and learning from their mistakes and how to move forward. And I think it's very true is like, Evie said there is a lot of times they don't even know you did it. So let me take you way back to 1983 when Michael Jackson, right? And the Jackson reunion was going on, right? And he breaks out Billie Jean and he does this phenomenal dance. And I remember being like, I don't know, 12, 13 years old and watching him on TV. I'm like, that is awesome. Oh my God, he did the moonwalk. It was so awesome, right? But later on in interviews, he sat there and said, I messed that up so bad. It was horrible. But the world went, oh my God, this is great. And that happens so often in presentations. You think you're bombing, but you're not. You just got to roll with it. I mean, Bill Gates had that problem, if you remember that, right? Good old plug and pray. If you remember that, go back up, look on YouTube, Bill Gates crashing, blue screening right in the middle of a presentation. I think they plug in a scanner or something. It is back in 998 or something, maybe, or XP, plugs it in. The whole thing blue screens right on stage. Yeah, it completely bombed, And it was like one of those moments. But you got to roll with it. You got to laugh it off. Don't be afraid to laugh at yourself. I mean, you have to have a good positive attitude about it. You got to be able to laugh it off. Most of the time, these are in small groups, people you commonly work with, right? We're presenting to those types, and you got to move forward. And sometimes it happens, you try to be the best prepared you can be, have a backup plan, like even if today, if this session crashed, I'm sure you guys have a backup plan or something else we would do to keep things moving forward in some way. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, for me, it's always been, if I am presenting live. One time I actually had to fly. They flew me to Chicago to do a live demo on a remote meeting software. And I'm like, that kind of sounds weird that you're flying me to demo this remote meeting software so that everyone doesn't have to fly anymore. But it's one of those things that, that I did. And I started off laughing about this. And this was back, we're talking 10, 12 years ago. This is, like, I don't know, WebEx might've been in its infancy. There was no Zoom. The platform was hosted internally. It was not hosted in the cloud. So there's all these things that could go wrong. And I sat there and going, okay, if this doesn't work, I have enough screenshots, in my PowerPoint deck that I can kind of walk them through the process instead of the live one. So having that, at least in my back pocket, lent a little bit of confidence so that if it did happen, I would say, you know what, I would laugh, like Joey said, you laugh it off and then you go to your plan B. You just don't dwell on it. You just, keep moving forward. shifting to something different. I mean, this is the world that we're living on. What's the experience been like in COVID times, and how have you have adjusted, new home equipment? Are there downsides? Are there potential upsides? Let's kick off with you, Matt.
Sure. So, one of the challenges I had was getting my camera to work properly. It was in the laptop. It was that new Dell, so it's all the way down here down here in the bottom, right, where the camera is. You can't see me. It was a real pain. And then nobody could get web cameras for months. So one of the things I did was right now I'm using my cell phone. So this is an app that's installed on my cell phone, and then there's an app installed on my VM, and basically it communicates over IP, and I get the video going. So I've added this now to my package when I do remote items, right? If I need a camera and my camera isn't working, now I got a backup camera using my cell phone. So those are some of the things I've had to do. Now, some of the other tips I do to warm up the crowd, I can't stress that enough. Warming up the crowd is vital to success, right? And it's about those personal relationships and getting them warmed up before, and I do this even more so now than I did before, was a very welcoming invite. I'm really excited today that we're meeting on this topic. I do hope you have a good day. Just simple things like that and that communication style before you get to the event, especially being like it is today. Everyone's really stressed. There's a lot of stress in the world right now. Be that light, right? Be that happy person. That's going to go a million miles more than any technology I could talk about. Being that light and being that happy person, even when you're not, I know it's hard. It's hard for everybody, but being that for your customers and bringing them into that world just for a little bit, it helps a lot. So that's what I would add.
Any new equipment other than your phone, and remembering to take yourself off mute?
That would be about it. Yeah.
How about you, Joey?
I kind of got lucky. I was able to get one of those Logitech cameras before COVID hit, like a month before. And I was like, hey, this thing is awesome. I got it because I'm lazy and I wanted the windows to low. I like walking up to my PC and I log in. The webcam built into these Dells don't do that. So I was like, hey, that's why I wanted it. It worked out great for me, right? Because I've had several meetings. I actually just do office hours now where I have all my customers just say, hey, let you know, from this time to this time every day, Monday through Friday, join. I mean, even if it's not work related you want to talk about, if it's just to kind of get to almost this face-to-face again. Some took me up on it, and I appreciate when they do that. You can always just create like a separate, room, and you can swap back and forth if it's something that they want to keep private between their companies, right? Or just have your customers talk with each other. It's like a little small VMUG, kind of thing, just a TAM roundtable or whatever. So other than that, keeping your desk clean, because it drives me up the wall to come walk up to my desk and it's just messy, and it's me that's caused the mess, but also with 5 kids, I don't have an office space, right? I lost my office when kid 3 came around. So I'm in the corner of my bedroom. I have to have a background. No one wants to see what's going on behind the scenes, and then just try to have fun with it. When we first started doing our team meetings, Jody can say, I have stupid little pictures that I use, like this one behind me, because the song is stuck in my head 24/7. But it's to me too. Like I talk too much sometimes, and I have to go. All right, just smile, just be ready to go.
Now, have you taken advantage, or is anyone on the panel taking advantage of the fact that, with everything remote, there's more opportunity to participate in things like VMUGs that might have been restrictive because of geography prior to? Are you guys looking into that?
Yes.
Evie,
Definitely.
what about you?
No, I've also been enjoying the online VMUG presentation. I did the Home Lab one recently because of an invite with Matt, and that's was definitely a blast. And for me, it was something that, since it's a topic so near and dear to my heart, jumped right into it. I think I had like you said, I have to know today if you can do this week. And then I jumped right in. I think it was like a Monday, and I'm in there Wednesday. So, but these things happen like sometimes on a dime, and you want to seize those opportunities, because sometimes you might not be thinking of, but other people see you in different lights too. So that's nice about this, even with like the COVID times, that we can be surprised with like the different needs we have there and where we can help each other. Because that's one of the things that we can do really best, is coming together to make a difference. And stuff like this, VMUG and AWONT, we have a lot of knowledge within our TAM work that we can share.
Yeah, I know that, there's, aside from, being able, it's like looking, like all of a sudden those kind of barriers to participate have dropped, because everyone, again, this is what I want to talk about, like, have you added anything to kind of your setup? Because that evens the playing field a little bit, is like, okay, I don't have to like, spend out of my pocket to fly to a place to participate in a VMUG or a conference or another event and pay for hotel and food and whatever. I can present from anywhere, anytime. And I thought about that and just like, hey, you know what? But I still want to look, I want to be a little bit polished. So, I was just using the built-in everything off of my MacBook Pro, and I realized, okay, I'd already gotten a green screen, and I have a small apartment, so I'm kind of scrunched for space. I don't have an office. I'm at my dining room table right now. I'm overlooking, part of downtown Sacramento. So I had the green screen, so that was a positive that I gotten before. But I realized that the quality of the voice quality wasn't really good, so I ended up getting a microphone. And then I realized I don't have a lamp above me. All I'm getting is a natural light, which sometimes is really great. So I got a light, from one side. So I kind of have a little tiny mini recording studio here, at least a beginner's one, that I felt like, okay, now I feel okay enough to present, if I was going to submit for something and present. But I never needed that, prior, because, I was hopping on a train, to visit customers, or I was running from one spot to the other. Now it's kind of like, I'm, like you're glued to your chair. It's like, I want to make that chair as comfortable as possible. I want that people to see me, to kind of go, oh, okay, you don't see my cat running behind me. I mean, sometimes you could, depending on how casual the environment is. My daughter is funny, because last night I told her, I said, hey, at 10 o'clock, I'm, she's a college graduate, but she's working from home too right now. And it's like, well, at 10 o'clock, I'm moderating this panel. So, if you come out of her room where she is, and just, be a little bit quiet, blah, blah, blah. And she like, grabs the cat, and she's like, well, the cat wants to do a cameo. And I'm going, no, let's not do that. But there's things like remembering that, my Roomba would turn on at 11 every day, because I used to do that because I'd be gone during the middle of the day. So my Roomba was set to go on at 11, and my customer meeting was set for 10:30, and all of a sudden it's like, and I'm like, oh God, it's like, so there's like these little things about just presenting from your home or wherever you might be, that I had to kind of take a look at and go, okay, I need to change that. Okay, I need to change that.
Was the cat on top of the Roomba?
No, I had the one cat kind of just like ignores it. They kind of look at it and are like, you don't scare me anymore. They just shrug.
One of the things
I've actually been in, like unintended things. I've been in a customer meeting presenting something, and I think I mentioned before, I live on top of a hotel, like the 13th floor, or floor 1, as they like to say, because they, people are superstitious.
Lucky you.
But the hotel fire alarm went off, and they had to evacuate the hotel. And I'm going, okay, I can't turn this up. It's not like just like I'm plugging my batteries for my smoke detector. I got to get out of here, and like I got to walk down 13 flights of stairs, and then I'll have to walk back up unless, they, whatever it is. So it's just like, again, it was one of those things. It's like, yeah, we'll catch up later, so like, it's okay to sometimes admit defeat when you're, like I said, when the demo gods or the power gods are against you. It's just like, I can do so much. But if I lose certain parts of it, it's like, we'll reschedule. There's no shame in that.
One of the things I was thinking of just now, school's going back in session. My wife's a teacher, so she's gone. I've had the house to myself for like a week and a half now again. of course, we start this up. My wife comes home for lunch. So I'm like, I didn't tell her I was doing this. You know, I'm like, hey, kind of be quiet, you know, let me know if you're going to, you know, what's up. And it's like, I should put a sign on the door and say, hey, Dad's doing something or whatever. So
Blue light.
yes, I've seen
On air
recording
light.
on. Yeah. I'm at that point to wanting one too. Sorry, Joey.
Hey, Jody, one, were you done there, Jody? I'm sorry, Joey, were you done? Yeah. One tip I wanted to add to this topic here was back to food. And this came from my SC community. They went out and bought like Grubhub passes for all the people attending an event. And then the people in their areas. Now, this is a great global strategy. I don't know why I never thought of it because my customer's in Australia. And they always complain they never get food. I never thought of it, right? We thought about having things delivered, but now that they're all remote, one of the things they did was they made sure each one of them had a little bit of a money or a stipend for Grubhub or whatever, Deal Dash or whatever, I don't know what it is, whatever the delivery services are out there. And then they could just go in and order what they want and have it delivered about that time. And we all kind of had lunch together. It was really cool. It was a great idea. And I could carry that idea on to other global presentations, even when we do start getting back together. So,
yeah, one of the things I've actually been doing, kind of, again, it's like, what can you introduce to your meetings, whatever. Because there's a lot of things that you do when you're in person. You know, when I would go to my customer, the first 10 minutes of a meeting would be catching up with people and how are you doing, and like someone had mentioned earlier, don't just jump into your presentation. There's that human factor that I think is important. So I still like to share things that are happening ahead of time. Was try apolitical or whatever as much as possible, but just it's kind of that check-in. How are you doing? Out here in the Central Valley and in Northern California, we've been having these terrible fires, and so when I have customers that are some of them are still in San Francisco because that's where they live. I have one of my customers, he actually lives in Vacaville, which was hit, and so I don't just like jump into my meeting. I'm like, hey, how are you doing? I heard the fires are close, anything, blah, blah, blah. And it just, that human touch, I think is so important nowadays because you have that physical distance. You got to somehow reach people and make them feel valued. And it's like, otherwise, I mean, there's tons of content that you can get, just and consume without, talking live to people. So, what can you bring to the table to do that? I think the Grubhub thing is a great idea. My daughter's employee has done that before too. When they have their calls like once a week, they'll get a bit of money through whatever, and she's like, hey, I'm ordering from Uber Eats. You want something? I'm like, no. I'm like, damn, my employee doesn't do that. It's a nice touch.
Yep.
Last question, and I think this is really, really important because I said before we even started, my big passion is to get people involved, people that might be at the beginning of their career, or maybe they didn't think that there was a spot for them to participate in events or presentations, or they didn't feel like, is it even worth it? What's your advice for others in getting active in events, whether it's signing up when there's a request for speakers? And the second part of that question is, what do you feel is the return on investment for you doing that? I mean, is it worth it? That branding of yourself and getting out there has been worth it? And explain kind of how. Matt, why don't you go ahead and kick that off?
Sure. So first off, I would say, don't think you have to know it all, right? If you're a topic speaker, know the topic, but you don't have to know it all. And that's kind of the premise I started my VMUG on. Was I didn't know everything about virtualization, but I wanted to know more. And no one else was organizing it, so I stepped up and started organizing things. I just had to be smart about getting things organized, and then I started learning more. So that's kind of how I broke into more of that technology and getting a deeper level of what I knew, right? Was trying to get more folks involved and get folks around me and get them to present and then learn from their skills and improve mine, and so on and so on. You don't start out as Michael Jackson, right? Michael went through the 60s in Motown, learned from James Brown. Let's be honest. That's where he learned a lot of his dance skills, watching James Brown. But he had a mentor, right? And he looked up to somebody and he built his skills and he practiced hard, right? And he became a world-class dancer, right? And a world-class singer, but he didn't get there by just starting out, so don't feel you have to be the best, and don't feel you have to be, the top of the list, but do reach out and start learning your skills and practicing your skills. Here, I'm going to make this offer to anybody listening to this call right now. If you want to practice with me, or I would think anybody else in the panel maybe, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I will be more than glad to get on a WebEx with you, employee, non-employee, and let's go through your presentation skills. I'll be glad to help you. If I can. I don't know it all, but I'll teach you what I know and help you move forward. And lastly, on brand, I don't care about brand. I'll be honest with you. I do blogging and tweeting and YouTube. I do it because it's a passion of mine. I love to do it, and I love to see someone learn something new, and that's a passion of mine. Whether it was being a DJ, I actually worked for Domino's and did the phones and was happy at doing that and talking to people and making sure they were satisfied. Just that customer service passion that I have of giving back to other people, it's just instinctual to me, and I love it. And that's what really got me into a lot of this. So I hope that helps, and I hope it helps others.
Evie, how about you?
I think taking the dive into it makes a big difference, because like for a lot of us where we maybe have not presented before or done a bit of that public speaking type work, you don't necessarily know because there's all that anxiety that you get trapped up into it sometimes, but there's a lot of fun that comes out of it too. Like there's all that preparation and then getting the positive feedback and response of working with like a crowd or a team. And it's just something that nourishes the soul in its own unique way. And it's hard to capture that until you do it. It's an experience all of itself, is the best way I can say about it. When we talk about return on investment, it's not just merely just the dollars and cents part of it. It's just adding a different part to yourself that you didn't quite realize you had there, because it comes in to be a skill that you can make use in all these other times. It's just part of our repertoire and part of our life that we do. So I say it's not merely just about the job, it's about just the whole person of experience, because you don't know what things can lead to, because presenting opens up all sorts of other opportunities. You go into it to talk about one thing, and then afterwards, while you're doing your downtime, you have a conversation about four different totally different topics, and then you're already diving into your next thing, and you're helping someone out, or you're solving a problem of theirs and making a difference in this world. So that's my take.
I think that's a good point, is that when you put yourself out there, you never know who you might help. You never know who you might meet. When I first started, it was kind of I was always super nervous to speak, but I kind of forced myself to get out of my little cocoon. It's I really want to do this not only to impart what little knowledge I have onto others, but it really helped expand my network of people that I may have never met in real life, or outside of a VMUG or outside of a conference that I spoke at, and making those connections and kind of sharing, similar battles and, war stories and, how-tos and everything. It made my universe a little bit bigger, so that I just didn't feel, especially now, I'm an empty nester. My kids are gone for the most part. My daughter will be leaving next month again, to go back to the East Coast. And so it's just I sit there going, I have no one to talk to. So if I don't get out of my little bubble, if I don't force myself to participate, then it becomes a pretty small world again. And I definitely don't want to do that. And I've also been able to meet some great people and, connections that sometimes are lifelong, and they might have either been a co-presenter or someone else on a panel. And then over the years, they become a friend. And I think that's better than anything that I've had. Joey, how about you?
Yeah, I can say so. Just being able to talk in front of people is always, it soothes the soul kind of thing, just because like you said, you get stuck at home or whatever. I will say, being able just to speak at a VMUG, whether you're the leader or just a user that wants to get up and speak, I think it's great for you to do that. In my case, one of my customers came to my VMUGs all the time, and then the actual management says, hey, we'd like to hire a TAM. Have you heard of this Joey Ware guy? And then they were like, yeah, we know him, so you're building not your brand, but, people know you, so don't be afraid to speak because, it could take you somewhere, it's just never a bad thing to do. You're muted, Jody.
Yeah, I know. So I wish I had a big button there that said mute, mute, mute instead of on the corner there. We should maybe, hey Zoom, there's a feature request there. We've got a little bit. I want to save a couple of minutes for any questions from our attendees. Anyone out there that wants to share an experience or have a question about how to get started? This is your opportunity.
Are they
Still not a good speaker, but it is about getting out there for sure. But what I would say is, it is a practice. It is a learned art. So you have to have to go out there and stand in front of them, and not just look at the back of the room and talk. You have to kind of engage through your eyes the people, especially we're all wearing masks. So that's the only way you can do it right now. But that's all I got. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, Stephen.
And this is Clint Pearson in Omaha. I think one of the challenges for me, I love the presentation. I love being in the room in front of people and sharing the content. I dread the preparation. I am pretty detail oriented, and I find it's at least a 10-to-1 ratio of time invested to have something that you feel really confident in. And that's sometimes I'll hesitate to present just because I'm like, I don't have 10 hours handy to get ready for a 1-hour talk. And so for me, historically, that's been a problem. I think that the more practice you get, though, it can get better. You can reduce that time as you get more comfortable with, things that and stuff like that. But more of a comment than a question, or maybe if you guys have experienced the same thing and what the tips are to help reduce that prep time even better.
For me, it's know your audience. I mean, I will look at a calendar invite and find out who's coming to the presentation. If it's a VMUG, I'm a little less worried about it because it seems like it's a bigger, or especially a local VMUG, let me phrase that. But yeah, get to know your audience. If there's no VPs or CXO type level going to be in the meeting, then I'm not as worried about being nitpicky. But if there is going to be some of those kind of roles in there, then I do become like you, Clint, where I'll make myself sick worrying about presenting. CE1 did help that for me a little bit. I do need to take CE2 whenever we start doing those again. I don't know if there still are, but yeah, I'm the same way, Clint.
Any other comments or questions?
One thing I wanted to add that I think I probably meant to, but missed it, was don't be afraid to present wrong information. Okay? What does wrong information do? I'm making you think here. This is me presenting again. I'm making you think, right?
Someone's going to challenge you on it. Someone's going to challenge you on it.
Right, exactly. So we have the type of folks that we get into, and we try to present as accurate information as we can, right? And they challenge us on it no matter how accurate it is, or they don't engage with us at all or ask any questions, and we just get crickets, right? But when we shifted slightly to little bits of wrong information, they engaged and said, hey, look, that's been an update. That's been a change. We changed that, and they start talking. But having those little seeds in there throughout a presentation, depending on the audience, right? Having those little seeds, they think a little bit more about, wait a minute, we talked about that 2 weeks ago. That was third quarter, not fourth quarter. You got a typo there. And then it just starts the conversation. But having some seeds of wrong information is not necessarily a bad thing.
Final word from the panel. Evie, anything else?
I'd say you don't necessarily have to dive in and make your whole entire big home lab like some of us have here. Like, we've got a lot of resources on hand, like from the hands-on labs to the static lab we talked about a number of sessions ago in a previous TAM lab, and for people out in the field. definitely make use of hands-on labs, or try something small, like start with like Raspberry Pi and work with that and work into like your demo plans. We've got a lot of things that don't take a lot of infrastructure that you can practice with and help polish and hone your skills. It doesn't have to be something big. You can start small and focus on and polish it, and so you can have something good that you can fall back onto. It's nice to have a common repertoire and a framework that you can play with. It's sort of like the hello world, if you know programming, of presentations essentially, and that you can experiment with the medium and try it out.
Joey, final words.
Anytime you're presenting, whether it's virtually or in person, shut everything else down. Don't leave something up, because I am the type of person, if my boss leaves open Outlook or they get those instant iMessages from their phone to their Mac, I will send them something just to, hey, it's annoying, turn that off or something, just stuff like that. So I make sure I don't leave anything up that could be bothering, could draw attention somewhere else.
Excellent, excellent. Matt, how about you?
Know when it's time to cut the cake. What? Cut the cake? Back to food again. No, listen to this. This is legit. So every event I've done, every presentation I've done, I've always had a cake cutting moment. And this goes back to my DJ days. I did a ton of weddings. I could probably recite Corinthians 13 by heart. I've heard it that many times, doing DJing so many weddings. But what I started to notice as I started DJing and presenting was as soon as we cut the cake, everybody left. Dessert was served, we're done, audience is out of the building. But that concept, the cake cutting moment, is the same thing you should think about in your presentation. Know when it's time to cut the cake, because that's when they check out, and know when it's time to get off stage. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everybody. This is the cutting the cake moment right now. I want to thank all of our panelists today for joining and kind of giving us some of their tips and tricks and just some great focus around how to get started and things to look out for.